The morning sun cast long shadows across the French Quarter, glinting off polished Cadillacs, and bringing to life the ancient wrought-iron balconies of New Orleans. Inside Bayou Bistro, Christian Blake held court among his lieutenants, his black suit pristine against weathered leather. The heavy oak door burst open with such force that conversation died instantly, every guard's hand moving to concealed weapons as a small figure darted past the stunned hostess. A little boy no older than 6, tears streaming down his dirt-smudged face, stood trembling in the center of the room. "Please help! They're hurting my mom!" The child's desperate plea sliced through the room's tension, his voice breaking as his tiny chest heaved with panicked breaths. His eyes, wide with terror, locked onto Christian's with an instinctive recognition of authority. Christian rose slowly, his movement deliberate as cigarette smoke curled around his shoulders like ghostly wings. The room froze in that suspended moment, the most feared man in Louisiana staring down at a child who had just committed the unthinkable, interrupting his morning meeting. For 3 heartbeats, silence reigned as Christian's steel-gray eyes assessed the trembling child, noting the fresh bruises on his arms and the desperate hope in those innocent eyes. Something ancient and forgotten stirred behind his carefully constructed mask of indifference. "Boss?" murmured Patrick, his second in command, hand still resting on his concealed weapon, uncertainty clouding his usually confident demeanor. The question hung in the air between them, how to handle this bizarre intrusion. Christian knelt down, bringing himself eye-level with the boy who flinched, but stood his ground with courage that belied his years. "What's your name, kid?" he asked, his voice softer than any of his men had heard in years. "Charlie," the boy whispered, wiping his nose with the back of his hand, his entire body trembling like a leaf in storm. "My mom, she told me to run and not stop, and I saw your cars outside and—" His voice cracked with desperation. In that moment, Christian made a decision that would alter the course of countless lives, including his own. "Where is she, Charlie?" he asked, already motioning to Patrick, who was immediately on his feet, signaling to the others. The boy's words tumbled out in a frantic stream as he described the small yellow house 3 blocks away, where his mother was trapped with the man whose rage had finally erupted beyond closed doors. Christian caught the flash of recognition in Patrick's eyes. They knew exactly which house. "Stay with Annie," Christian instructed, nodding toward the hostess whose maternal instincts had already brought her to the boy's side with a glass of water. "Tell her to get you some pancakes while I go help your mom." The transition from restaurant to street took seconds. 4 black SUVs roaring to life, Christian sliding into the lead vehicle with a cold focus. The child's desperation had awakened something primal in their leader, something they hadn't witnessed since the early days of his empire. The convoy tore through the narrow streets, Christian's mind racing ahead to the confrontation that awaited. He had built his reputation on calculated decisions, yet here he was, racing toward unknown danger because a child's tears had penetrated his defenses. "The yellow house with the broken gate," Christian murmured as they turned onto Dauphine Street, his eyes narrowing at the seemingly peaceful facade that concealed violence within. "Patrick, you and Cole take the back. Nobody leaves that way," he commanded. At that moment, a scream pierced the morning air, high, terrified, and abruptly cut short. Christian was out of the vehicle before it fully stopped, his usual calculated demeanor replaced by a cold fury that propelled him toward the peeling front door. Christian Blake had not become the king of New Orleans' underworld through mercy or hesitation. His rise had been meteoric and brutal. At 29, he controlled everything from the docks to the high-end casinos, his name spoken in whispers even among police. His empire stretched from the Mississippi to the swamplands, built on a foundation of loyalty purchased through both fear and protection. The Blake Syndicate was known for its code. Betrayal meant death, but loyalty meant prosperity beyond imagination. The sprawling mansion in the Garden District where Christian resided alone was a testament to his success. Marble floors imported from Italy, artwork worth millions adorning walls. Yet for all its grandeur, it remained as cold and empty as its owner's heart. What few knew about Christian Blake was that he had crawled from the gutters himself, orphaned at 12, surviving on streets that devoured weaker children. The scars on his body told stories of lessons learned through blood and pain. His lieutenants, Patrick, Cole, and the others, were not merely employees, but the closest thing to family Christian had allowed himself since watching his mother die. They followed him not just from fear, but from a grudging respect for a man who never asked for more than he himself would give. Women came and went in Christian's life, beautiful, sophisticated companions who adorned his arm at galas and warmed his bed at night. None had ever penetrated the armor he'd built around himself, the protective fortress that kept emotion at bay. Power was Christian's true companion. The rush of controlling his domain, of building something from nothing, of being feared and respected. It was enough, he told himself in the quiet hours when sleep eluded him and memories threatened. Yet something had shifted when he looked into Charlie's desperate eyes, a recognition perhaps of his own childhood terror reflected back at him. The boy had awakened something Christian thought long buried beneath years of calculated violence and control. The yellow house they now approached belonged to one of his lower-level distributors, a man named Hank Porter, who moved product through the riverside bars. Christian had never met the man's family, had never cared to know about the lives that orbited around his business transactions. But now, as his shoes hit the cracked sidewalk and he heard another muffled cry from within the house, Christian felt something unfamiliar unfurling in his chest. It felt dangerously close to responsibility for something beyond his empire. 3 minutes, he told his men as they formed around him, weapons now visible in the morning light. If I'm not out in 3 minutes with the woman, burn this place to the ground with everyone inside it. The weight of his own gun was familiar in his hand as he approached the door, the golden morning light catching on its polished surface. Christian had killed before, clinically necessarily without hesitation, but never with the white-hot rage now coursing through his veins. His foot connected with the door with such force that it splintered on impact, the crash echoing through the small house like a thunderclap. Christian stepped through the debris, his tall frame filling the doorway as his eyes adjusted to the dimmer interior. What he saw inside burned itself permanently into his memory, a tableau of violence frozen in the moment of his arrival. A woman with copper hair lay crumpled against the far wall, a thin trickle of blood running from her temple down a face that, even in pain, held striking beauty. The man standing over her turned at Christian's entrance, confusion replacing rage, as he recognized one of the most dangerous men in New Orleans standing in his broken doorway. "Boss?" "What?" he began, alcohol heavy on his breath even at this early hour. "The boy found me," Christian said simply, his voice deceptively soft as he stepped fully into the room, taking in every detail, the overturned furniture, the shattered glass, the bruises already forming on the woman's exposed arms. "He made a better choice than you did." The woman's eyes fluttered open at his voice, revealing irises the color of summer storms, gray with flecks of blue that widened in confusion and fear at the sight of the armed men filling her small living room. She tried to speak, but only managed a pained gasp. "Christian Blake," she whispered, recognition dawning in those storm cloud eyes, her body instinctively pressing further against the wall, as if trying to disappear into it. The fear in her gaze was different from what he usually saw. Not fear of the unknown, but fear of knowing exactly who stood before her. Hank Porter's face drained of color as he processed the situation, sobriety slicing through his drunken haze with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "This is a family matter, Mr. Blake," he stammered, taking a step back, hands raising in placation. "My wife and I were just having a disagreement." Christian's laugh held no humor as he moved further into the room, each step deliberate, predatory. "When my business associates make poor decisions in their professional lives, I terminate our relationship," he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. The woman, Charlie's mother, watched this exchange with growing horror, her gaze darting between the two men and toward the door, as if calculating her chances of escape. Blood matted her copper hair where it had been slammed against the wall. "Your son is safe," Christian told her directly, ignoring Porter's continued excuses. "He's at my restaurant eating pancakes with my staff, showing more courage than this piece of garbage has in his entire body." Her relief was palpable, tears welling in those remarkable eyes as she nodded once, a silent thank you that somehow carried more weight than any spoken gratitude Christian had ever received. In that moment, something indefinable shifted between them. "Samantha deserved it," Porter spat suddenly, alcohol and fear creating a volatile cocktail of poor judgment, always threatening to leave, to take my boy away from me, as if she could survive a day without what I provide. The transformation in Christian was instantaneous, the controlled businessman vanishing as he crossed the room in 2 strides, his hand closing around Porter's throat with crushing force. "Her name sounds wrong coming from your mouth," he growled, lifting the man until his feet barely touched the floor. "Please," Samantha's voice cut through the tension, stronger now despite her injuries. "Not in front of Charlie," she pleaded, looking toward the doorway with fear in her eyes, before realizing her son wasn't there. Christian released Porter with a disgusted shove, watching him crumple to the floor, gasping for breath. "Pack whatever you need," he told Samantha, his tone brooking no argument. "You and your son are coming with me." Her hesitation was brief, but noticeable. The devil she knew versus the devil she didn't. But the thought of Charlie seemed to decide her. She rose shakily to her feet, dignity somehow intact, despite her torn dress and bruised skin. "If you touch her again, if you attempt to contact her or the boy, if you so much as speak their names," Christian addressed Porter in a voice like winter frost, "what happens to you will become a cautionary tale whispered throughout this city for generations." As Samantha gathered a few belongings with trembling hands, Christian watched her with a curiosity he couldn't explain. She moved with a grace that transcended her circumstances, a resilience that spoke of years enduring what no one should have to endure. Patrick opened the car door as Christian approached with Samantha, leaning slightly against his arm, her small suitcase clutched in her free hand. The lieutenant's face remained impassive, but his eyes held questions about this unprecedented deviation from their normal operations. "We'll go directly to the estate," Christian instructed as he helped Samantha into the vehicle, noting how she winced when her back touched the leather seat. "Call Dr. Hammond and have him meet us there within the hour." The journey through New Orleans passed in tense silence, Samantha staring out the window at the city transforming from the working-class neighborhoods to the opulent garden district. Her face reflected in the tinted glass showed a woman struggling to process the sudden upheaval of her world. Christian studied her covertly during the drive, the quiet dignity in her posture despite obvious pain, the protective way she clutched the small bag containing the only possessions she deemed worth saving. No wedding ring adorned her finger, he noticed, though her skin bore the telltale mark of one recently removed. The Blake estate emerged from behind ornate iron gates that opened automatically as their convoy approached, revealing manicured gardens surrounding a colonial mansion that spoke of old money and power. Samantha's sharp intake of breath was the only indication of her surprise at the grandeur. "Charlie is already here," Christian informed her as the car came to a stop at the grand entrance. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Bennett, has been keeping him entertained in the kitchen. Apparently he's quite fond of chocolate chip cookies." Relief softened Samantha's features momentarily before wariness returned, her storm cloud eyes meeting Christian's directly for the first time. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying neither accusation nor gratitude, merely a genuine desire to understand. The question caught Christian off guard. Straightforward inquiries about his motives were rare in his world of calculated moves and countermoves. "Your son showed extraordinary courage coming to find help," he answered simply, offering his hand to help her from the car. Charlie's excited cry of, "Mom!" cut through the formal atmosphere as they entered the marble foyer, the boy running from the direction of the kitchen with chocolate smeared across one cheek. He stopped short at the sight of his mother's injuries, his small face crumpling with a mixture of relief and renewed distress. Samantha dropped to her knees despite the pain it clearly caused her, gathering her son into a fierce embrace that spoke volumes about their bond. "You were so brave, my little knight," she whispered into his hair, tears finally breaking through her composed exterior. Christian watched this reunion with an unfamiliar tightness in his chest, suddenly feeling like an intruder in his own home. He signaled silently to Mrs. Bennett, who appeared discreetly in a doorway, her kind face showing concern but not judgment at the scene before her. "Please show Mrs. Porter and Charlie to the East Wing guest suite," he instructed, deliberately using the formal title despite knowing from Samantha's earlier reaction that she likely didn't consider herself married anymore. "Dr. Hammond will be arriving shortly to check on our guests." Charlie looked up at Christian with those same brave eyes that had captured his attention in the restaurant, though now they held something new, a child's simple trust that pierced through layers of hardened cynicism. "You saved my mom, just like you said you would," he stated with absolute certainty. Samantha rose shakily, keeping her son close against her side as she faced Christian. "We can't stay here," she said softly, though the statement lacked conviction, as her eyes darted toward the impressive staircase that led to security she hadn't known in years. "You can and you will, at least until we determine your next steps," Christian replied, his tone leaving no room for argument, though his words were carefully chosen. "Your safety is now my concern, whether that fits into your plans or not." Dr. Hammond's examination revealed the extent of Samantha's injuries: 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, and numerous contusions in various stages of healing that told a story of ongoing abuse. His grim expression as he exited the guest room spoke volumes to Christian, who waited in the hallway. "This isn't the first time she's been hurt, and some injuries never properly healed," the doctor reported quietly, packing away his equipment with methodical precision. "She needs rest, proper nutrition, and time away from whoever did this to her." Christian nodded, a muscle working in his jaw as he processed this information. "She'll have everything she needs here," he assured the doctor, already mentally cataloging the resources required to ensure both mother and son could recover without worry. Later that evening, after Charlie had fallen asleep in the adjoining room of their suite, Christian found Samantha standing on the private balcony, overlooking the illuminated gardens. Fresh bruises bloomed against her pale skin, contrasting sharply with the elegant silk robe Mrs. Bennet had provided. "Porter wasn't just my distributor," Christian stated without preamble, watching how Samantha's shoulders tensed at the mention of her abuser. "He also had connections to rival organizations that have been encroaching on my territory. Connections he kept hidden from me." She turned slowly, moonlight casting her features in silver and shadow. "Is that why you intervened?" she asked, no accusation in her tone. "Merely a woman seeking to understand her current circumstances. Because he betrayed your business interests?" Christian considered lying. It would be simpler, cleaner, maintaining the emotional distance he preferred. But something in those storm cloud eyes demanded honesty. "I intervened because your son reminded me of someone I once knew," he admitted, surprising himself with the truth. Samantha nodded slowly, accepting this answer as she wrapped her arms around herself in a protective gesture. "Charlie has always seen the best in people, even when there's little good to find," she said softly, her gaze returning to the moonlit garden. "How did you know who I was?" Christian asked, recalling her recognition when he'd entered her home. "Most people in this city know my name, but few would recognize my face immediately." A bitter smile touched her lips briefly as she traced a pattern on the stone balustrade. "Before Charlie, I worked as a paralegal for Westbrook and Associates. They handled several cases involving businesses that paid protection to your organization," she explained. This revelation surprised Christian. Westbrook was one of the most prestigious law firms in Louisiana, representing wealthy clients and corporate interests. "That's quite a fall from paralegal to—" He trailed off, unwilling to put into words the situation he'd found her in. "To battered wife of a low-level drug dealer?" Samantha finished for him, a spark of defiance flaring through her exhaustion. Porter was a client at the firm, charming, attentive, everything a lonely single mother thought she wanted in a partner. The pieces began to align in Christian's mind as he leaned against the doorframe, keeping a respectful distance. "He targeted you for your access to information about our operations," he concluded, watching her face carefully for confirmation. Samantha nodded, tears gathering but not falling. "By the time I realized what he was doing, he had isolated me completely from friends and colleagues, convinced my former boss I was stealing client information," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "When did the abuse begin?" Christian asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Men like Porter followed predictable patterns: charm, isolation, control, and finally violence when other methods of domination proved insufficient. "The first time he hit me was the day I tried to leave with Charlie," she answered, one hand unconsciously rising to her cheekbone where a faded scar was barely visible beneath her makeup. "He made it clear that if I ever tried again, he would take Charlie from me permanently." Christian felt cold fury rise within him at this confirmation, but kept his expression neutral. "And the rival organization he was feeding information to?" he prompted, needing to understand all dimensions of this situation that had so unexpectedly entangled with his own. "The Cardona family from Miami," Samantha revealed, her voice dropping to nearly a whisper as if the name itself might summon danger. "I found correspondence. They're planning something big, using Porter as their entry point into New Orleans." Days stretched into weeks at the Blake estate, spring blossoming across the gardens as Samantha's visible wounds began to heal. Charlie adapted to their new environment with the resilience of childhood, quickly becoming a favorite among the staff, who had never heard childish laughter echo through the austere halls. Christian found himself increasingly drawn to the East Wing where his unlikely guests resided, initially justifying these visits as security briefings about the Cardona threat. Samantha's insights into Porter's connections proved invaluable, her analytical mind impressing even Patrick, who rarely approved of civilian involvement. The first time Christian heard Samantha laugh, a genuine sound of amusement when Charlie demonstrated his newly acquired skill of balancing spoons on his nose at breakfast, something shifted irreversibly in his carefully constructed worldview. The sound lingered in his mind throughout meetings with distributors and negotiations with city officials. "You never told me what happened to him," Samantha said one evening as they sat in the library, Charlie already asleep upstairs after exhausting himself in the garden. The question needed no clarification. They both knew she meant Porter. Christian considered his response carefully, watching the firelight play across her features that had filled out slightly now that she was eating regularly. "He's no longer in New Orleans," he answered truthfully, if incompletely. "His connection to the Cardonas earned him a one-way trip out of my territory." Samantha studied him over the rim of her wineglass, those perceptive eyes seeming to read between his carefully chosen words. "I should feel something about that. Fear, guilt, satisfaction. But I feel nothing except relief that he can't find us," she confessed. "The capacity to feel nothing for those who've hurt you is a survival skill," Christian responded, thinking of his own emotional detachment that had served him well over years of building his empire. Some would call it a strength. The subtle shake of her head surprised him as she set down her glass. "It's not strength when it extends to everyone, when you can't feel anything at all for anyone," she countered softly, her insight cutting closer to his reality than he'd expected. Over the following days, Christian found himself sharing meals with Samantha and Charlie with increasing frequency, his schedule mysteriously clearing around dinner time despite Patrick's raised eyebrows. The boys' endless questions about everything from how cars worked to why the sky was blue provided a strange reprieve from the calculated conversations that filled Christian's normal days. "You never had children," Samantha observed one afternoon as they watched Charlie exploring the garden under Mrs. Bennet's watchful eye. It wasn't a question, but an observation, delivered without judgment as they sat beneath the shade of a massive oak tree. Christian's laugh held little humor as he loosened his tie, a rare concession to informality. "My lifestyle doesn't lend itself to family life," he replied, the standard answer he gave to anyone who dared broach the subject of his solitary existence. "And yet you've created this fortress where people are fiercely loyal to you," she countered, her gaze still following her son's adventures among the rose bushes. "That's a kind of family, even if you don't call it that." The observation lingered between them, neither uncomfortable nor easily dismissed. "Loyalty built on fear and financial dependence isn't family," Christian finally responded, surprised by his own candor. "It's business wrapped in convenient terminology." Samantha turned to face him fully then, challenge evident in her expression. "Is that why you've kept us here?" "Business," she asked directly, no accusation in her tone, but a simple demand for honesty that few would dare present to Christian Blake. Before he could formulate a response that wouldn't reveal too much of his own confusion about their presence, Charlie came bounding up the gentle slope toward them, clutching something in his small hands. "Mr. Christian, look what I found," he exclaimed, excitement radiating from his entire being. Christian leaned forward as the boy opened his cupped hands to reveal a tiny, brilliantly blue butterfly resting on his palm. "It's a blue morpho," Christian identified automatically, surprising both himself and Samantha with this unexpected knowledge. "They're not native to Louisiana. It must have escaped from the botanical gardens." "It's the exact same color as your eyes," Charlie announced to his mother with the certainty of childhood, transferring the delicate creature to Samantha's outstretched hand. The butterfly's wings pulsed slowly, iridescent blue, catching the dappled sunlight filtering through the oak leaves. The butterfly moment beneath the oak tree marked a turning point, a brief interlude of genuine connection that Christian found himself unwilling to dismiss as meaningless. That night, he reviewed security footage from the estate perimeter with unusual personal attention, the threat from the Cardona family suddenly feeling more immediate. Patrick arrived at dawn with news that confirmed Christian's growing unease. "Our sources confirm Cardona's eldest son, Ricardo, arrived in New Orleans last night," he reported, placing surveillance photos on Christian's desk showing a sleek private jet at the regional airport. Christian studied the images with narrowed eyes, mentally calculating the implications of Ricardo's personal involvement. He wouldn't come himself unless they were ready to move, he mused, tapping one finger against the polished mahogany surface. "There's more," Patrick continued, sliding forward another photograph, this one showing Hank Porter leaving the terminal with Ricardo, his face partially obscured by sunglasses but unmistakable to those who knew him. "Apparently, your mercy was misplaced. The boy starts school next week," Patrick reminded him with uncharacteristic gentleness. "We can't keep them in protective custody forever without explaining why. She deserves to know the full scope of the danger." That evening, after Charlie had been tucked into bed with stories of pirates and treasure, Christian invited Samantha to his private study. The room, with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and leather furnishings, reflected the man himself, organized, intimidating, yet hiding unexpected depths. "Porter is back in New Orleans," Christian stated without preamble as he poured 2 glasses of bourbon, watching Samantha's face pale at the news. "He's working directly with Ricardo Cardona now, which elevates the threat significantly." She accepted the drink with steady hands despite the fear evident in her eyes. "They know I'm here," she concluded, her quick mind connecting the implications immediately. "They know what information I have about their operations." Christian nodded, respecting her enough not to soften the truth. "The Cardonas want to eliminate me and take control of New Orleans. Porter wants revenge on both of us, and he knows Charlie is your vulnerability," he explained, laying out the situation with brutal clarity. "We should leave," Samantha said immediately, setting down her untouched drink. "Your involvement with us has put you in their crosshairs even more directly. We're a liability you never asked for." Christian moved around his desk to stand before her, close enough to see the faint freckles across her nose that had emerged during their afternoons in the garden. "You became my responsibility the moment Charlie walked into my restaurant," he stated with quiet intensity. Something shifted in Christian's expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition of a spirit as fiercely independent as his own. "Then be my ally instead," he proposed, the words emerging before he'd fully formed the thought. "Help me dismantle the Cardona threat permanently." Surprise flickered across Samantha's features, followed by cautious interest. "What exactly are you suggesting?" she asked, studying him with the analytical mind that had made her a valued paralegal before Porter had systematically dismantled her career. "You have insider knowledge about Porter's connection to the Cardonas, legal training, and a perspective my organization lacks," Christian explained, warming to the idea as he spoke. "Together, we can create a strategy they won't expect from a man they believe operates solely through force." Samantha considered this proposition, conflict evident in her expression. "And Charlie?" she asked, her primary concern never wavering regardless of the circumstances. "He deserves a normal life, not one surrounded by danger and criminal enterprises. Charlie deserves to grow up safe, with a mother who isn't looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life," Christian countered gently. "Helping me means ensuring that future for both of you, one decisive action instead of a lifetime of running." The truth of his words registered in her eyes as Samantha rose from her chair, moving to the window that overlooked the moonlit garden, where earlier that day, her son had played without fear for the first time in years. "What's your plan?" she asked finally, her decision evident in those 3 simple words. Christian felt an unfamiliar sensation expand in his chest, not the cold satisfaction of a business deal secured, but something warmer and more complex. "We'll use the Cardona's expectations against them," he began, already mentally assembling the pieces of a strategy unlike any he'd employed before. The trap was set with precision that reflected both Christian's tactical experience and Samantha's meticulous attention to detail. The abandoned warehouse on the riverfront had once served as a transfer point for Christian's organization, but had been strategically leaked as his current base of operations. Ricardo Cardona prided himself on personal involvement in major territory expansions, a trait that made him both respected and predictable to those who understood the patterns of ambitious men. The surveillance team confirmed his arrival at the meeting point, Porter at his side like an eager shadow. "Remember, we only need the electronic evidence from Porter's phone," Christian reminded Samantha, as they reviewed the operation from the secure command center he'd established 3 blocks away. "Once we have that, the FBI will handle the Cardonas using the RICO case your former firm was building." Samantha nodded, her focus absolute as she monitored the surveillance feeds showing Ricardo's men taking positions around the warehouse perimeter. "Porter keeps everything on his encrypted phone, emails, bank transfers, meeting recordings," she confirmed, her knowledge of her abuser's habits now a powerful weapon. The operation unfolded with practiced efficiency. Ricardo and his lieutenants entered the warehouse expecting to ambush Christian, only to find federal agents emerging from concealed positions. The chaos that erupted was calculated and controlled, each element unfolding according to the carefully orchestrated plan. "Porter is trying to escape through the east exit," Samantha reported suddenly, her attention fixed on a monitor showing a solitary figure breaking away from the main confrontation. "He's not with the main group being detained." Christian was moving before she finished speaking, Patrick already calling in the secondary team to cut off Porter's escape route. "Stay here," Christian ordered Samantha, the command softened by the quick touch of his hand against hers. This ends tonight. The alleyway behind the warehouse lay in deep shadow, the sounds of the federal raid muffled by distance, and the constant hum of the nearby river. Christian moved silently, years of surviving New Orleans streets guiding his steps as he tracked his prey through the darkness. Porter's ragged breathing gave away his position before visual confirmation. The man was hunched behind a dumpster, frantically typing on his phone with trembling fingers. "Deleting evidence won't save you," Christian stated calmly, stepping into view with his weapon held casually at his side. Terror flashed across Porter's face as he scrambled to his feet, the phone clutched against his chest like a shield. "Blake," he gasped, eyes darting for escape routes that didn't exist. "This isn't what it looks like. I was forced to work with them." "You seem to be forced into a lot of situations," Christian observed coldly, advancing with measured steps. "Forced to betray me, forced to work with Cardona, forced to beat your wife when she discovered what you were doing." Porter's expression shifted from fear to desperation, the cornered animal ready to lash out with anything available. "She was mine before you took her," he snarled, something unhinged flickering behind his eyes. "Everything was fine until that brat ran to you." The mention of Charlie ignited Christian's fury, though his exterior remained chillingly calm. "Give me the phone, Porter," he demanded, extending his hand with the absolute certainty of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "Your only choice now is how this ends for you." For a moment, it seemed Porter might comply, his survival instinct briefly overriding his rage, but then his expression hardened with the special hatred of a man with nothing left to lose. "You want the phone?" he taunted, pulling a small revolver from his jacket pocket. "Come take it." What happened next unfolded in heartbeats. Porter raising his weapon, a shot echoing through the alleyway, and Porter crumpling to the ground clutching his shoulder. Behind Christian stood Samantha, her hands steady on the pistol Patrick had apparently provided for her protection. "I told you to stay at the command center," Christian said quietly as he approached her, noting the perfect stance that spoke of someone who had prepared for this moment. Her eyes remained fixed on Porter's writhing form, no hint of regret or hesitation in their stormy depths. "You don't get to order me around, remember?" she replied, her voice remarkably steady as she lowered the weapon. "Partners make decisions together, and I decided I wasn't letting him take another shot at my future." The federal agents arrived moments later, securing Porter and retrieving the phone that contained everything needed to dismantle the Cardona organization's expansion plans. As they led him away, Porter's venomous gaze fixed on Samantha with undisguised hatred. "This isn't over," he spat, blood staining his expensive shirt. Christian stepped between them, shielding Samantha from those hate-filled eyes. "It was over the moment you underestimated her," he stated with quiet finality, watching as the federal agents pushed Porter into a waiting vehicle that would take him far from New Orleans. 3 months after the warehouse operation, the Cardona organization had been effectively dismantled through a combination of federal prosecution and strategic pressure from Christian's syndicate. Ricardo faced multiple life sentences, while Porter had turned state's witness in a desperate attempt to reduce his own sentence. Samantha stood on the balcony of what was now officially her suite in the East Wing, watching Charlie chase fireflies across the twilight garden with Mrs. Bennett's grandchildren who visited every Sunday. The sound of his carefree laughter still felt like a miracle after years of enforced silence in Porter's house. "The prosecutors called today," Christian announced as he joined her, loosening his tie after a day of meetings that increasingly focused on legitimate business ventures rather than his traditional operations. Porter's testimony secured convictions for the entire Cardona leadership. "I've been thinking about Charlie's education," Christian ventured after a comfortable silence, watching the children below construct an elaborate fortress from garden furniture and blankets. "The Academy on St. Charles has an excellent reputation and discreet security protocols." A small smile played at the corners of Samantha's mouth as she turned to face him. "You've already arranged it, haven't you?" she asked knowingly, having grown accustomed to Christian's tendency to solve problems before they were even fully articulated. "I may have had a preliminary discussion with the headmaster," he admitted with the faintest hint of sheepishness that only she ever witnessed. "But the final decision is yours, as always." The "as always" hung between them, an acknowledgement of the careful boundaries they had established, the respect for autonomy that formed the foundation of whatever this was becoming. "Thank you for consulting me this time," Samantha replied, genuine appreciation warming her voice. Below in the garden, Charlie had apparently declared himself king of the fortress, a paper crown crafted by Mrs. Bennett perched jauntily on his dark curls. "He's healing," Samantha observed softly, maternal pride evident in every line of her face. The nightmares are less frequent now. Christian nodded, remembering the early weeks when Charlie's terrified screams had echoed through the mansion at 3 a.m, bringing both of them running to comfort the boy who feared his father had returned. Children are remarkably resilient when given safety and stability. And what about their mothers? Samantha asked, turning to face Christian fully, the question layered with meanings neither of them had dared to directly address in the months following the warehouse confrontation. Are they resilient too? Christian studied her face in the fading light, the strength that had drawn him from the beginning, now complemented by a confidence that came from reclaiming her own power. I think they're the most resilient of all, he answered honestly, allowing himself to truly see her. Samantha set down her wineglass, her movements deliberate as she closed the distance between them. I've made a decision, she stated, the directness that he had come to appreciate evident in her tone. About our arrangement here. Christian felt an uncharacteristic moment of uncertainty. The possibility that she might leave now that the threat was eliminated had haunted him more than he cared to admit. Whatever you need, it's yours, he offered, the words emerging more vulnerable than intended. What I need, she began, her storm cloud eyes holding his with unwavering intensity, is to stop pretending that what's between us is merely convenient or strategic or temporary. The admission hung in the air between them, neither a question nor a demand, but a simple truth finally acknowledged. Samantha, Christian breathed her name like something precious, his carefully maintained control wavering for perhaps the first time in his adult life. I'm not asking for promises or declarations, she continued, her practical nature asserting itself even in this moment of emotional honesty. I'm simply acknowledging what's already here, something neither of us planned but both of us built, day by day. Christian reached for her then, his touch gentle as he traced the line of her jaw with fingers that had ordered deaths and built empires, but now trembled slightly at this far more consequential contact. I've never been good at naming what matters to me, he admitted quietly. Then don't name it, Samantha suggested, leaning into his touch with the trust that had been earned through actions rather than words. Just show me, as you've been doing since the day you broke down Porter's door. When their lips finally met, it felt like the inevitable conclusion to a story that had begun with a desperate child running into a restaurant, and the unlikeliest of heroes rising to answer the call. The kiss deepened with months of unspoken longing, finally finding expression. Below in the garden, Charlie looked up at the balcony and nudged Mrs. Bennett, pointing with the innocent perception of childhood at the two figures silhouetted against the warm light from within. The older woman smiled knowingly, ushering the children inside with promises of ice cream to give the adults their moment of privacy. Later that night, after Charlie had been tucked in with stories and kisses, Christian and Samantha sat in the library discussing the future, not with grand declarations or dramatic promises, but with the practical considerations of two people who had survived enough to value substance over sentiment. The legitimate businesses need expansion, Christian mused, Samantha's head resting comfortably against his shoulder as they shared the oversized leather chair. There's potential in the tech sector that we haven't explored yet. Samantha hummed thoughtfully, her legal mind already connecting possibilities. I've been reviewing the portfolio. With my paralegal background, I could help restructure the holdings to create more separation between your various interests, she suggested. Every great family started somewhere, Samantha replied with quiet wisdom, her hand finding his in the comfortable space between them. Even the Medicis began as merchants before becoming patrons and powers. The comparison sparked something in Christian's imagination, a legacy beyond power and fear, perhaps something that Charlie could one day inherit without shame. Partners in all things, then? He proposed, the question carrying weight beyond business arrangements. Samantha turned to face him, the firelight catching the copper highlights in her hair and the certainty in her eyes. Partners in all things, she agreed, sealing the pact with a kiss that promised beginnings rather than endings. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, as your support is crucial for me to continue creating content here. 6 pairs of eyes tracked every movement across the gleaming deck of the $150 million mega yacht anchored in Charleston Harbor, while a 7th pair, belonging to a 7-year-old girl, watched them all from behind a silver serving cart. The child's fingers nervously twisted the hem of her navy blue dress, a stark contrast to the crisp white uniform her mother wore among the catering staff. Anna's gift had manifested when she was barely 3, deciphering the patterns of birdsong before she could properly speak, translating conversations between tourists on the boardwalk that no child should understand. Her mother, Tessa, had learned to hide her daughter's extraordinary ability from a world that would exploit it. Tonight's catering job paid triple the usual rate, enough to cover 3 months of rent in their modest apartment overlooking the industrial side of Charleston's waterfront. The Russian billionaire hosting the event had specifically requested Tessa after tasting her signature seafood bisque at a governor's dinner. What Tessa didn't know was that her employer, Dmitry Volkov, had deeper motives beyond gourmet catering for his exclusive guest list. Behind his affable demeanor lurked a calculated plan years in the making, centered around one particular guest who had yet to arrive. The guests aboard the vessel represented the elite of several underworlds, men and women whose wealth was matched only by the depths of their secrets. Their laughter echoed across polished teak decks as they balanced champagne flutes between manicured fingers. Anna slipped between serving stations with practiced invisibility, a skill perfected through years of accompanying her mother to jobs where children were tolerated, but not acknowledged. Her gold sandals made no sound against the custom carpeting. The 6 men who had captured Anna's attention moved with military precision disguised as casual professionalism. They wore identical black suits with crimson pocket squares, their earpieces barely visible behind carefully groomed sideburns. To anyone else, they appeared to be typical security personnel for a high-profile gathering, but Anna noticed their eyes, how they connected across the deck in patterns too deliberate to be coincidental. A subtle nod, a finger tap, an adjusted cufflink, each gesture part of a complex code. Tessa worked diligently in the yacht's state-of-the-art kitchen, unaware of her daughter's growing fascination with the security team. She focused on arranging delicate appetizers, while the executive chef barked orders in 3 different languages to his harried staff. The Charleston skyline twinkled against the darkening horizon as harbor lights began to illuminate the water surrounding the massive vessel. Despite the beauty, Anna felt a growing sense of unease, like the heaviness in the air before a summer storm. Every 32 seconds the pattern repeated, a clockwork of visual signals passing between the men, creating an invisible web of communication across the crowded deck. Anna's extraordinary mind began categorizing each movement, assigning meaning to the subtle language. While refilling a tray with miniature crab cakes, Anna overheard 2 of the security men speaking in a Sicilian dialect she had never encountered before, yet somehow understood perfectly. When the Calabrian arrives, everything must appear normal until the toast. The lead security officer checked his watch exactly 17 times in the span of an hour, a detail Anna filed away as significant, though she didn't yet understand why. His eyes held a coldness that made her shrink deeper into the shadows when his gaze swept the deck. Champagne fountains cascaded down crystal pyramids, catching the light from chandeliers that would not have been out of place in a European palace. The display of wealth was overwhelming, designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. A helicopter approached from the mainland, its distinctive chopping sound cutting through the ambient jazz music piped through concealed speakers. The security team tensed collectively, each man touching his earpiece in perfect synchronization. Dmitry Volkov emerged from his private quarters, adjusting platinum cufflinks worth more than most people's annual salary. His smile appeared genuine, but Anna noticed it never quite reached his pale blue eyes as he prepared to greet his final guest. "The Calabrian approaches," whispered one guard to another in Italian, unaware that the little girl arranging napkins nearby understood every word. "The special glass awaits in position 3, exactly as planned." Anna's heart raced as she pieced together fragments of overheard conversations with the visual code she'd been tracking. Whatever position 3 indicated, she felt certain it meant danger for the arriving guest they called the Calabrian. Tessa appeared briefly to check on her daughter, tucking a stray curl behind Anna's ear with flour-dusted fingers. "Stay out of sight, little one," she whispered. "But if you need me, I'm just through those swinging doors preparing the main course." The helicopter touched down on the yacht's landing pad, rotors slowing as a door opened to reveal a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. He carried no visible security team, projecting quiet confidence. 6 pairs of eyes tracked his every move, while Anna's became the 7th, her extraordinary mind racing to decode the increasingly urgent signals passing between the security team. Something was building toward a crescendo, like the final movements of a symphony before its dramatic conclusion. The Calabrian American boss, introduced only as Mr. Lupo, moved with deliberate grace through the crowd, accepting congratulations and well wishes, as though he expected them. His weathered face remained carefully neutral, despite the enthusiastic greeting from his Russian host. In the kitchen, a special drink was being prepared with meticulous attention to detail. A rare amber liquor poured into a distinctive Venetian crystal glass with a gold-rimmed base. The bartender wore gloves, handling the glass with extreme care. Anna slipped away from her assigned position, drawn by instinct toward the bar area where the special preparation was taking place. She watched, unnoticed, as a small vial was produced from an inner pocket, and 3 precisely measured drops were added to the distinctive glass. Volkov's announcement cut through the ambient chatter. A ceremonial toast would commence in exactly 5 minutes to honor their distinguished guest from Calabria. The 6 security men moved into predetermined positions around the deck, their pattern now clear to Anna. Time seemed to slow as servers arranged themselves in formation, the poisoned glass positioned at the center of a silver tray destined for Mr. Lupo. Anna's extraordinary mind calculated the remaining seconds before catastrophe would unfold upon the gleaming deck. The security team's eye movements accelerated, communicating a countdown that only Anna could perceive. Right eye movements for minutes, left eye blinks for seconds. 4 minutes and 27 seconds remained before the lethal toast. Anna's small hands trembled as she processed her limited options. She could try to warn her mother, but Tessa was busy in the kitchen and would never reach the deck in time. The adults would dismiss a child's frantic claims as imagination or confusion. Dmitry Volkov raised his hand, signaling for the champagne service to begin, his platinum watch catching the light from overhead chandeliers. "My friends, prepare for a historic moment as we welcome our esteemed Calabrian colleague to Charleston's waters." The poisoned glass moved closer to its intended recipient, carried by a server unaware of its deadly contents. Anna counted 15 steps between its current position and Mr. Lupo's waiting hand, a distance shrinking with every passing second. Fragments of conversation swirled around her. Business deals, political maneuverings, thinly veiled threats disguised as pleasantries, all meaningless compared to the silent assassination about to unfold. Anna made her decision in a heartbeat. She darted between guests, her small size allowing her to navigate the forest of expensive suits and designer dresses. A woman in emerald silk exclaimed as Anna brushed past, spilling champagne on a nearby gentleman who cursed in Portuguese. The security team noticed the disturbance, their synchronized eye signals faltering momentarily as attention shifted to the commotion. The lead guard touched his earpiece, murmuring something in rapid Sicilian that translated in Anna's mind as, "Contain the situation. Mr. E." Lupo stood beside Volkov now, both men smiling for photographers capturing the historic meeting between 2 powerful figures whose public businesses masked darker enterprises. Neither noticed the determined child weaving through the crowd toward them. The server carrying the poisoned glass was 3 steps away from his destination when Anna reached the space directly behind Mr. Lupo. Her golden sandals gave her the extra height needed as she pretended to trip, arms flailing dramatically. Her small hand connected with the bottom of the tray, sending the poisoned glass flying through the air in a graceful arc that ended with a spectacular crash at Volkov's expensive leather shoes. Crystal shards scattered across the deck like diamonds on black velvet. Silence fell instantly across the yacht, 100 conversations halting mid-sentence as all eyes turned toward the source of the disturbance. Anna froze in place, suddenly the center of unwanted attention from Charleston's most dangerous gathering. "What is the meaning of this?" Volkov's voice was controlled but edged with ice, his pleasant host persona slipping to reveal something far more dangerous beneath. His eyes narrowed as they focused on the small girl in the navy dress. The 6 security guards moved simultaneously, converging toward Anna with hands shifting subtly toward concealed weapons. Their synchronized movements confirmed everything Anna had suspected about their coordinated intentions. Tessa burst through the kitchen doors, alerted by the commotion, her face paling as she saw her daughter surrounded by advancing security personnel. "Anna!" she cried, rushing forward only to be blocked by 2 staff members following security protocols. "Mr. Lupo raised his hand, a simple gesture that somehow commanded immediate respect from everyone present. "Wait," he said, his voice carrying easily across the deck despite its soft volume. "Let me speak with the child." The security team hesitated, exchanging glances that Anna now understood perfectly. Uncertainty, disrupted plans, unspoken questions about how to proceed when the target himself intervened. Their visual code conveyed mounting panic beneath professional exteriors. Mr. Lupo knelt to Anna's level, dark eyes studying her with uncommon intensity. "You knocked over my special drink," he stated, not a question but an observation. "Was there a particular reason for that?" Anna's extraordinary gift extended beyond languages and codes. She could read truth in faces with uncanny precision. She saw genuine curiosity in Mr. Lupo's expression, and something else, a recognition of kindred uniqueness that gave her courage. "The men with red squares in their pockets," she whispered, voice barely audible above the yacht's ambient sounds. "They talk with their eyes about putting something bad in your glass that would make your heart stop." Mr. Lupo's expression remained unchanged, but Anna noticed the nearly imperceptible tightening around his eyes. He believed her. Rising slowly to his full height, he surveyed the deck with new awareness, noting the positions of the 6 security guards. Volkov laughed with forced joviality, attempting to salvage the moment. "Children and their imaginations. Please let us prepare fresh drinks and continue our celebration without further interruption." His smile remained fixed while his eyes conveyed murderous rage. The lead security guard touched his earpiece, receiving new instructions that Anna couldn't hear, but could guess from his subtle hand signal to the others. Abort the current plan but remain on standby. The poisoning attempt had failed, but the danger hadn't passed. Tessa finally broke through to her daughter, gathering Anna protectively in her arms. "I'm so sorry," she apologized to both powerful men, fear evident in her voice. "She gets overexcited sometimes. Please forgive the disruption." "No harm done," Mr. Lupo replied with surprising gentleness, though his eyes never left Volkov's face. "Children see things we adults often miss." The statement hung in the air between the two power brokers like an undetonated explosive. Beneath the polite veneer, a silent war had erupted. Volkov's failed assassination attempt exposed but unproven, Mr. Lupo's awareness confirmed, but his response yet undetermined. The yacht's luxurious deck had transformed into an invisible chessboard. Tessa attempted to retreat with Anna toward the kitchen, but Mr. Lupo gestured subtly to one of his own men who had been disguised as a guest. The man immediately moved to block their path with apologetic professionalism. "Perhaps," Mr. Lupo suggested with deceptive casualness, "the young lady and her mother might join me for a private conversation about what she believes she saw and heard tonight." His tone made it clear this was not actually a request. The yacht's security system activated with a subtle whir, as Dmitry Volkov overrode standard protocols, initiating a lockdown that sealed all exits without alerting the guests. Metal barriers silently slid into place over gangways, while smiling servers continued circulating champagne. Mr. Lupo guided Tessa and Anna toward a private stateroom, his calm demeanor belying the gravity of their situation. His own concealed bodyguard followed 3 paces behind, scanning constantly for threats from Volkov's increasingly agitated security team. "How long have you been able to understand languages you've never learned, Mr. Lupo asked Anna once the stateroom door closed behind them, his question confirming he recognized her gift wasn't ordinary, and that he'd accepted her warning without hesitation. Tessa gasped at the direct acknowledgement of her daughter's ability, something they had hidden for years. "How did you know?" she whispered, instinctively positioning herself between Anna and this powerful man, whose life her daughter had just saved. "I've encountered only 2 others with similar gifts in my lifetime," Mr. Lupo replied, his voice softening as he addressed Anna directly. They could decipher patterns most humans miss completely, as if hearing a different frequency of communication. Anna studied the carpet's intricate nautical pattern, gathering courage before meeting his gaze. "The men with red squares have different eye movements for different messages. Right eye for targets, left eye for timing, both together for confirmation." Outside the stateroom, the party continued under a veneer of normalcy, while Volkov's security team repositioned themselves throughout the yacht. Their eye signals now communicated a secondary protocol, one involving the yacht's lower decks and engine room. "The Sicilians aren't just security, they're specially trained assassins from Palermo," Anna continued, recalling fragments of whispered conversations. "They called you the Calabrian, and said your territory expansion in the eastern ports couldn't continue." Tessa watched in astonishment, as her daughter articulated complex geopolitical conflicts she couldn't possibly understand through conventional means. The child spoke with uncanny precision about matters beyond her years, confirming the extraordinary nature of her perception. Mr. Lupo nodded thoughtfully, revealing nothing in his expression as he processed this information. "And Volkov's involvement? Did you catch any communication about that?" His question was casual, but carried significant weight. "The Russian paid for everything but doesn't give orders directly," Anna explained, reconstructing the hierarchy she'd observed. The lead Sicilian with the scar behind his ear receives instructions from someone not on the yacht, someone they call the Council. A muffled explosion from the lower decks interrupted their conversation, subtle enough that most guests would mistake it for machinery, but significant enough to make Mr. Lupo exchange knowing glances with his bodyguard. The situation was escalating rapidly. "Dimitri's contingency plan is activating," Mr. Lupo explained, moving toward a concealed panel in the stateroom wall. "We have approximately 7 minutes before this vessel becomes inoperable." He pressed his palm against the panel, revealing an emergency escape route. Tessa clutched Anna protectively, torn between trusting this stranger who seemed to accept her daughter's abilities without question and fearing the dangers that clearly surrounded him. "Why should we follow you instead of finding our own way out?" "Because the 6 Sicilians saw your daughter expose their plan, and the Council doesn't leave witnesses," Mr. Lupo replied with blunt honesty. "Especially not witnesses with extraordinary abilities who could identify their entire network of operatives." A second, louder explosion rocked the yacht, sending fine crystal glasses crashing from shelves as the emergency lighting activated. Alarm systems began blaring throughout the vessel, triggering panicked reactions from the wealthy guests on the main deck. "Decision time," Mr. Lupo stated calmly, despite the chaos erupting around them. "Trust me and potentially live, or take your chances with Volkov's men and certainly die." His offer contained no emotional manipulation, just the cold reality of their predicament. Tessa looked at Anna, who nodded decisively, her gift telling her Mr. Lupo's intentions were genuine despite his dangerous world. "We'll go with you," Tessa agreed, taking her daughter's hand as they followed him into the narrow emergency passage. The hidden corridor bypassed the main deck entirely, leading them through the yacht's structural skeleton toward a secondary helipad at the vessel's stern. Emergency lights cast eerie red shadows as they navigated the cramped space designed for exactly this scenario. Volkov's yacht has 7 emergency exits, but only 3 are genuinely viable during a crisis, Mr. Lupo explained as they hurried along. "He's currently monitoring the main routes while implementing a controlled burn in the engine room as distraction." Tessa struggled to process the casual way these powerful men discussed catastrophic events they had clearly prepared for meticulously. "You anticipated he might try to kill you tonight, didn't you?" she asked, breathless from keeping pace with Mr. Lupo's long strides. "I anticipated the possibility, yes," he acknowledged without breaking stride. "What I didn't anticipate was that my salvation would come from a 7-year-old linguist with extraordinary perceptual abilities." He glanced back at Anna with undisguised fascination. They emerged onto the secondary helipad, where a sleek black helicopter sat waiting, its pilot already initiating startup procedures, despite no apparent communication from Mr. Lupo. The synchronization spoke volumes about his organization's efficiency. The Charleston harbor spread before them, city lights twinkling against the night sky, while black smoke began billowing from the yacht's lower decks. Distant sirens announced the approach of emergency services responding to the increasingly visible disaster. "We have approximately 40 seconds before Volkov's security team calculates our escape route," Mr. Lupo announced, helping Tessa and Anna aboard the helicopter. "They're currently preoccupied with evacuating guests to maintain appearances, but that won't last." As if on cue, the door behind them burst open as 2 Sicilian guards emerged onto the helipad, weapons drawn and expressions murderous when they spotted the escaping trio. Their coordinated movements confirmed everything Anna had deduced about their specialized training. Mr. Lupo's bodyguard intercepted the threat with impressive efficiency, his previously concealed weapon appearing in his hand, as he created a defensive position between the guards and the helicopter. "Go now," he shouted above the rotor noise, prepared to sacrifice himself. The helicopter lifted off as gunfire erupted below, each shot carefully silenced to prevent alerting the evacuating guests to the true nature of the night's events. Tessa covered Anna's eyes, but couldn't block the sound of conflict fading beneath the chopper's ascent. "Your man," Tessa began, uncertain how to address the apparent sacrifice they'd just witnessed as Charleston's skyline receded behind them. The helicopter banked sharply eastward, following a flight path that hugged the coastline at low altitude. "Paolo has been with me for 20 years, Mr. Lupo replied without emotion. "He'll rendezvous with us later through his own extraction route." His certainty suggested either remarkable faith or a complex contingency planning that Tessa could barely comprehend. 30 minutes later, they touched down on private property 50 miles north along the Carolina coast, a sprawling waterfront estate with its own landing pad and security perimeter. Floodlights illuminated their arrival as staff emerged to greet Mr. Lupo. "Welcome to Safe Harbor," he explained as he helped them disembark, the name seeming both literal and figurative. "My personal residence in the United States, known officially to only 17 people in the world. 18 and 19 now, I suppose." Anna absorbed every detail of their surroundings with her extraordinary perception. The disguised security measures, the strategic positioning of the main house for maximum visibility of approaching threats, the carefully maintained appearance of a wealthy but unremarkable estate. Tessa's mind raced with practical concerns as they were escorted inside. "My apartment, my job, our belongings. We can't just disappear." Her voice trembled slightly as the implications of the night's events began to fully register. "All being handled as we speak," Mr. Lupo assured her with unsettling efficiency. "Your landlord will receive 6 months' advance rent tomorrow morning. Your employer will get notice of a family emergency requiring immediate leave, and essential belongings will be retrieved." The interior of the mansion balanced luxury with functionality. Beautiful, but nothing ostentatious that would draw unwanted attention from neighbors or authorities. Every detail had been considered to maintain the perfect cover of wealthy anonymity. "You'll stay in the East Wing until we determine the full extent of Volkov's network and whether the council has identified you, Mr. Lupo explained, leading them through a grand foyer adorned with tasteful maritime art. "Your safety is now my personal responsibility." Anna tugged at her mother's hand, whispering with childlike directness, "He's not telling us that Volkov's yacht sank with evidence of the assassination attempt." Her comment caused Mr. Lupo to pause mid-stride, clearly surprised by her access to information he hadn't shared. "How could you possibly know that?" he asked, genuine curiosity breaking through his composed facade. "The scuttling protocol wasn't activated until after our departure, and only 3 people have access to that particular contingency." Anna shrugged with the innocent honesty of childhood. "The helicopter pilot received a coded message through his headset during our flight. 3 long tones followed by 2 short ones. In the security team's communication pattern, that sequence means evidence eliminated." Mr. Lupo exchanged glances with his staff, a new appreciation for Anna's abilities evident in his expression. "Perhaps we should discuss the full extent of your daughter's gifts," he suggested to Tessa, as a housekeeper arrived to show them to their quarters. Their temporary accommodations resembled a luxury hotel suite rather than guest rooms. Spacious, self-contained, and subtly secured with state-of-the-art technology disguised as ordinary fixtures. The windows offered breathtaking ocean views, while actually consisting of bulletproof glass. "Rest tonight," Mr. Lupo advised, pausing at the doorway. "Tomorrow we'll discuss your situation more thoroughly, including your options moving forward." His tone carried both assurance and warning. They were protected, but not truly free to leave. Tessa waited until they were alone before kneeling before her daughter, hands trembling slightly as she brushed Anna's hair from her tired eyes. "You saved a man's life tonight by noticing what no one else could see. I'm proud of you, but also terrified." Anna's perceptiveness extended to her mother's emotions, recognizing the complex mixture of fear, pride, and uncertainty swirling beneath her carefully controlled exterior. The guards would have hurt other people too, not just Mr. Lupo. "I had to do something." Morning arrived with coastal fog rolling across the manicured grounds, shrouding the property in natural privacy as Tessa and Anna were escorted to breakfast on a covered terrace. Mr. Lupo awaited them, reading financial reports beside a spread of fresh fruit and pastries. "News reports are calling it an unfortunate mechanical failure," he commented without preamble, showing them a tablet displaying headlines about Volkov's yacht. 3 deceased, including our host, who apparently went down with his ship rather heroically. Tessa nearly choked on her tea, processing the implication. "Volkov is dead? After just trying to kill you yesterday?" The speed and efficiency of this world's retribution was staggering, reminding her how completely out of her depth she and Anna had become. "The council doesn't tolerate failure," Mr. Lupo explained simply, offering Anna a plate of perfectly cut fruit, especially not public failure that draws unwanted attention to their operations. Volkov became a liability the moment his assassination attempt was exposed. A helicopter approached from the east, its distinctive engine sound causing Mr. Lupo to check his watch with satisfaction. "Right on schedule," he noted as Paolo, the bodyguard they'd last seen facing armed Sicilians, stepped onto the terrace looking remarkably unharmed. "The remaining Sicilians have been recalled to Palermo for a performance review," Paolo reported, accepting a coffee from the waiting staff. 4 survived the yacht incident but won't survive the week. The council is implementing standard containment protocols. Anna ate her breakfast quietly, absorbing every word while connecting invisible dots between fragments of information. Her remarkable mind was constructing an organizational flowchart of power relationships that adults would need sophisticated software to visualize. Mr. Lupo turned his attention to Tessa, his expression serious, but not unkind. "We need to discuss your daughter's future security. The abilities she possesses make her uniquely valuable to organizations that would exploit her without hesitation or mercy." Tessa's protective instincts flared immediately. "We've kept her gift secret for years. Last night was an anomaly. We can disappear, change names, move across the country. No one needs to know what she can do." Her desperation was evident despite her attempt at confidence. "The council already knows," Mr. Lupo countered gently. "And unlike Volkov, they don't make mistakes. They employ specialized trackers specifically tasked with identifying individuals with extraordinary abilities for recruitment or elimination." Anna spoke up suddenly, her childlike voice incongruous with her insights. "You want to protect us because I'm like you." Her simple statement silenced the adults, hanging in the air between them like a revealed secret none had dared articulate. Mr. Lupo studied her thoughtfully before nodding once in confirmation. "I was 12 when my abilities manifested. Not language like yours, but pattern recognition in human behavior. I could predict decisions people would make before they knew themselves." "That's how you built your organization," Anna deduced, connecting facts no one had explicitly shared with her. "You saw patterns others missed, predicted market shifts and competitor moves, knew which allies would remain loyal and which would betray you." A rare smile crossed Mr. Lupo's face, the genuine expression of someone who'd finally found another person who truly understood. "Precisely. And now I'm offering you both a choice. My protection and resources, in exchange for helping my organization in ways that never exploit Anna's gifts." Paolo cleared his throat respectfully, reminding his boss of unstated complications. "Sir, the education program would need significant adjustments for someone so young, and the mother's integration presents logistical challenges given her lack of background. Adjustments can be made." Mr. Lupo replied to Paolo's concerns with the confidence of a man accustomed to solving complex problems. "We'll create a specialized educational framework that nurtures Anna's abilities while preserving her childhood." Tessa's mind reeled with contradictions. This man operated in a shadowy world of assassination attempts and sunken yachts, yet spoke of preserving her daughter's childhood with seemingly genuine concern. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. "What exactly would you expect from us?" she finally asked, forcing practicality through her fear. "I'm a chef, not a whatever it is your organization does." She deliberately avoided specific terminology that might someday be denied in court. Mr. Lupo gestured toward the sprawling kitchen visible through French doors. "Safe harbor requires a head chef capable of handling everything from intimate gatherings to diplomatic functions. Your culinary reputation preceded you even before last night's events." Anna studied the grounds visible from the terrace, her extraordinary mind calculating distances and sight lines that formed another pattern. "The trees are planted to block sniper positions," she observed casually, "and the garden paths create choke points for intruders." Mr. Lupo's eyebrows rose slightly. Her perception extended beyond language and communication to strategic security design. "Correct. This property was constructed with 17 different security considerations, each layered within seemingly decorative choices. You're offering us sanctuary in exchange for my cooking and my daughter's consultation?" Tessa clarified, struggling to formulate the arrangement in terms that didn't sound like exploitation or imprisonment, though elements of both lurked beneath the surface. "Initially, yes," Mr. Lupo confirmed, his honesty disarming. "Over time, if you choose to integrate further into our operations, opportunities would expand accordingly. Our legitimate businesses span numerous industries that could benefit from your respective talents." A sudden commotion at the property's main gate interrupted their conversation, security personnel mobilizing with practiced efficiency as surveillance monitors displayed a convoy of black SUVs approaching the checkpoint. Paolo immediately moved to a defensive position. Mr. Lupo checked his phone, frowning at the unexpected development. "It seems the council has dispatched representatives sooner than anticipated. Their intelligence network is evidently more responsive than our models predicted." His tone remained calm despite the implicit threat. Anna tilted her head, processing information beyond normal perception. "There are 7 men in the cars, but only 5 are visible in the camera feeds. 2 are hiding." Her matter-of-fact statement sent Paolo immediately to the security monitors for confirmation. "How could you possibly know that?" Tessa whispered, both awed and frightened by her daughter's seemingly limitless perceptive abilities, which appeared to be expanding rather than remaining confined to language and visual codes. "The weight distribution of the vehicles is wrong," Anna explained, pointing to barely perceptible details on the monitor screens. "The suspension compression indicates additional passengers concealed in the modified compartments behind the rear seats." Paolo confirmed her assessment with thermal imaging, his professional composure briefly cracking to reveal astonishment. "She's exactly right. The hidden operatives are carrying specialized equipment consistent with extraction protocols. They're here for the girl. Activate countermeasure protocol, Sierra," Mr. Lupo instructed calmly, turning to Tessa and Anna with renewed urgency. "We need to move you both to a secure location immediately. The Council's interest in Anna has clearly escalated beyond initial assessment." Security panels slid open throughout the residence, revealing hidden caches of equipment and weapons as staff transformed from polite household employees to tactical operators with military precision. The peaceful breakfast scene dissolved into controlled chaos within seconds. "But how did they find us so quickly?" Tessa demanded as Paolo escorted them through a concealed door behind a bookcase, leading to a reinforced safe room beneath the east wing. "You said this location was known to only 17 people. 18 and 19 now," Anna reminded her mother softly, the implication clear in her tone. Their arrival had somehow compromised operational security despite all precautions. They followed the helicopter's flight path using satellite thermal imaging. Mr. Lupo joined them in the safe room, having changed into tactical gear that transformed his aristocratic appearance into something more utilitarian and dangerous. Anna's correct again. They tracked residual heat signatures despite our countermeasures. The safe room resembled a high-tech command center more than a bunker, with multiple monitoring stations displaying camera feeds from throughout the property. The approaching convoy had been permitted through the outer gate, but halted at the secondary checkpoint. "They're requesting parley under traditional protocols," explained Paolo, after receiving communication from the gate security team. "Their designated speaker claims council authority to negotiate terms regarding this special asset, witnessed at yesterday's incident." Mr. Lupo's expression hardened at the term asset being applied to a 7-year-old child. "Inform them that Safe Harbor acknowledges no council authority within its boundaries, but will permit 2 unarmed representatives to approach the South Pavilion." Tessa watched in horrified fascination as this parallel world of protocols, territories, and power structures revealed itself, a shadow civilization operating alongside normal society, with its own rules and hierarchies that somehow remained invisible to ordinary people. "Will your men be able to protect us if they decide to attack?" she asked, unconsciously pulling Anna closer, as the reality of their situation became increasingly dire. "They seem very determined to get to my daughter. My security team includes former Special Forces operators from 7 different countries," Mr. Lupo assured her with calm confidence. "But more importantly, the Council prefers negotiation to open conflict when dealing with established powers. They're pragmatists, not zealots." On the monitors, 2 men in impeccable suits exited the lead vehicle and submitted to security scans before being escorted toward the designated meeting point. Their measured movements and perfect posture suggested extensive military training beneath the business attire. "I should meet them alone," Mr. Lupo decided after observing their approach. "Paolo will remain here with you to coordinate security response if necessary." He checked his concealed sidearm with practiced efficiency before heading toward the elevator. Anna tugged her mother's sleeve, pointing to subtle details on the security feeds. "The man on the left keeps touching his watch. It's not just a timepiece, it's a communication device. He's recording everything to report back to whoever sent them." The delegation from the council awaited Mr. Lupo in the pavilion, maintaining perfect composure despite the armed security personnel positioned strategically around the perimeter. Their expressions revealed nothing as the Lord of Safe Harbor approached their position. Mr. Lupo returned 45 minutes later, his expression unreadable as the elevator doors opened to reveal him alone. The monitors showed the council representatives departing through the main gate, their mission apparently concluded without violence. "They offered $30 million for Anna," he announced without preamble, his disgust evident despite his controlled tone. "When I declined, they proposed a shared resource arrangement with guaranteed safety for both mother and child under their protection program." Tessa gasped at the casual commodification of her daughter, while Anna simply nodded as though confirming something she had already intuited. "Did you tell them no?" Tessa demanded, her maternal protective instinct overriding any fear of this dangerous world. "I informed them that Anna and her mother are under my personal protection, and any attempt to separate or exploit them would trigger immediate implementation of the Gibraltar Protocol. Mr. Lupo's statement carried the weight of an ultimate deterrent. "What's the Gibraltar Protocol?" Tessa whispered, while Anna's eyes widened with understanding before anyone could respond, her gift somehow allowing her to grasp the implications from context and subtle cues that others would miss entirely. "It's mutually assured destruction," Anna explained quietly, "but with information instead of weapons. If they harm us, Mr. Lupo releases everything he knows about the Council to authorities worldwide." Her simplified explanation captured the essence of a complex contingency plan. Mr. Lupo nodded in confirmation, impressed once again by Anna's perceptiveness. "Precisely. My organization maintains extensive documentation on Council operations across 17 countries. A dead man's switch that activates if certain conditions are met. They've retreated temporarily, but this isn't over," Paolo reported after reviewing security footage of the Council delegation's departure. "Their body language indicates strategic withdrawal rather than acceptance of your terms." Mr. Lupo agreed with this assessment, his tactical mind already calculating probabilities and countermeasures. "We need to accelerate your integration process," he told Tessa and Anna. "Establishing your official positions within our legitimate operations creates additional legal protections." 3 days later, Tessa found herself touring a gleaming restaurant kitchen in downtown Charleston, the crown jewel of Mr. Lupo's hospitality holdings, and apparently her new professional domain. The executive chef position had unexpectedly become available overnight. "You'll have complete creative control over the menu and staff," explained Mr. Lupo as they walked through the state-of-the-art facility. "The restaurant provides perfect cover for your sudden career advancement, while maintaining proximity to safe harbor." The adjacent office included a special classroom space where Anna would receive her education from private tutors, specially vetted by Paolo's security team. One-way glass and concealed security measures ensured her safety without creating an obvious prison-like environment. "We've developed a specialized curriculum that balances traditional education with targeted development of her unique abilities," Mr. Lupo explained, showing Tessa the comprehensive plan developed by educational specialists within his organization. Nothing exploitative, just nurturing her natural gifts. Tessa ran her fingers over the detailed educational materials, recognizing the exceptional quality and thoughtfulness behind them. "You prepared all this in just 3 days?" she asked, increasingly aware of the vast resources at Mr. Lupo's disposal. "We've maintained similar programs for special individuals since 1997, he acknowledged, though Anna's case is unique enough to require significant customization. The baseline framework already existed. His matter-of-fact tone suggested this wasn't their first such arrangement. Anna explored her new learning space with curious enthusiasm, immediately identifying the subtle security features integrated into the seemingly ordinary classroom design. "The bookshelf is reinforced steel, and the carpet pattern hides pressure sensors," she observed with approval. Over the following weeks, Tessa found herself settling into a surreal new routine, creating culinary masterpieces by day in her prestigious new position, while living under sophisticated protection at Safe Harbor by night. The arrangement was both golden cage and sanctuary. Anna flourished under the specialized educational program, her extraordinary abilities expanding beyond language and visual patterns to include mathematical systems, musical structures, and cryptographic codes. Her tutors frequently found themselves learning from their young student. Mr. Lupo visited their progress regularly, his initially professional interest in Anna gradually warming into something resembling avuncular affection. He brought puzzles and code samples that would challenge normal cryptographers, watching with undisguised fascination as she solved them effortlessly. "The Council has made 2 additional approaches through intermediaries," Paolo informed Mr. Lupo during their weekly security briefing, which Tessa now attended as part of the inner circle. "They've increased their financial offer to $50 million and proposed a formal alliance." Mr. Lupo dismissed these overtures with a wave of his hand. "Their persistence indicates growing desperation. Our sources suggest a significant operation is approaching that requires Anna's specific capabilities, something involving diplomatic communications they can't decode." Tessa had gradually adapted to this shadow world of international intrigue, finding her maternal protective instincts evolving into strategic thinking where Anna's safety was concerned. "Can we use their desperation as leverage to secure more permanent guarantees of our safety?" "An excellent suggestion," Mr. Lupo approved, his respect for Tessa's developing tactical mindset evident. "We'll propose a formal non-interference agreement with penalties severe enough to discourage future attempts at acquisition or elimination of your daughter. Anna continued developing relationships with the staff at Safe Harbor, who transitioned from professional protectors to something like extended family. Even Paolo's stern demeanor softened around her, particularly after she identified a security vulnerability in their communication protocols that had gone undetected for years. The restaurant thrived under Tessa's direction, earning critical acclaim and becoming Charleston's most coveted reservation within months of her taking the helm. The success provided perfect cover for their new lives while establishing her legitimate professional identity. Autumn arrived with cooling breezes off the Atlantic and increasing security concerns as the council's operational timeline apparently accelerated. Surveillance detected increased movement of known operatives in coastal regions between Savannah and Wilmington. They're establishing a perimeter, Paolo concluded after analyzing intelligence reports from Mr. Lupo's network. Preparing for something significant within the next 7 to 10 days based on resource deployment patterns and communication frequency. Mr. Lupo increased security accordingly, implementing additional protocols that restricted Tessa and Anna's movements to secure locations only. The restaurant operation continued under the supervision of Tessa's newly trained sous chef, maintaining appearances while they remained at Safe Harbor. "I don't understand why they're so fixated on Anna specifically," Tessa confessed during a private conversation with Mr. Lupo on the secure terrace. "Surely there must be others with similar abilities they could approach without this level of conflict. That's precisely the issue. There aren't others," he explained, his expression troubled. "In 30 years of searching, the council has identified only 7 individuals with cognitive capabilities approaching Anna's level, and none with her specific linguistic and pattern recognition abilities." The implications hung heavy in the cooling evening air. Her daughter wasn't just special. She was potentially unique in the world, a realization that explained the extraordinary measures both sides were willing to take regarding a 7-year-old child. Anna herself seemed remarkably composed, despite the escalating tensions surrounding her, adapting to their restricted circumstances with resilience that belied her young age. She continued her studies with focused determination, as though understanding that knowledge was her best defense. "They're moving," Paolo announced 3 days later, bursting into Mr. Lupo's study where he had been reviewing financial reports with Tessa. Multiple teams converging on Charleston from different directions. This isn't surveillance anymore. It's an operation. Security feeds showed tactical teams in unmarked vehicles establishing positions throughout the city, focusing particularly on routes between the restaurant and Safe Harbor. Their deployment suggested a coordinated extraction attempt designed to intercept during transit. "Activate lockdown protocols and deploy countermeasures," Mr. Lupo ordered immediately, his voice calm despite the clear escalation. "Relocate Anna to the Omega Secure Room and prepare the contingency evacuation route if perimeter defenses are compromised." Tessa hurried to Anna's classroom, finding her daughter already packing essential items into a small backpack with practiced efficiency. "You knew they were coming?" she asked, continually surprised by the extent of Anna's perceptive abilities. "I heard the helicopter engines changing patterns this morning. More security teams arriving means Mr. Lupo anticipated an imminent threat," Anna explained simply, her young voice steady despite the danger. "The birds also stopped visiting the north lawn feeders, which means unfamiliar people are positioned in the woods." The Omega Secure Room was unlike any previous safety measure Anna and Tessa had experienced. A reinforced chamber 20 feet below ground level with independent oxygen supply, communication systems, and enough provisions for 30 days. The walls contained a specialized copper mesh blocking all external signals. "This location doesn't officially exist," Paolo explained as he secured the heavy door behind them. "Not even in Mr. Lupo's private blueprints for Safe Harbor. If compromised, the entire room can be moved via hydraulic platform to a secondary evacuation point." On monitors throughout the chamber, they watched the unfolding security situation with growing concern. Council operatives had established blockades on 3 access routes to the property, while a specialized team approached from the shoreline using advanced submersible equipment. Mr. Lupo coordinated the defense with the calculated precision of someone who had prepared for this scenario extensively. His security teams deployed countermeasures that forced council operatives to abandon multiple entry points without revealing the full extent of Safe Harbor's defensive capabilities. "They're testing our response patterns," Paolo observed grimly, watching tactical teams retreat and regroup rather than press advantages. "This isn't an all-out assault. It's reconnaissance by force to identify weaknesses for their main operation." The probing attacks continued for 17 hours, gradually decreasing in frequency as the council gathered the intelligence they sought. By dawn, The property had returned to apparent normalcy, though enhanced security protocols remained active throughout the grounds. "We've identified their primary objective," Mr. Lupo announced, when he finally joined them in the Omega room, exhaustion evident beneath his composed exterior. "They're planning to extract Anna during the Governor's Economic Summit 3 days from now." Tessa felt her blood run cold. "But we're not attending any summit," she protested, looking to Paolo for confirmation. "Anna hasn't left Safe Harbor in weeks, and the restaurant is being run by my sous chef during this security situation." Mr. Lupo exchanged meaningful glances with Paolo before explaining. "You were both scheduled to attend as my special guests. The invitations arrived last month. I declined on your behalf due to security concerns, but the council apparently obtained the initial guest list. So we're safe as long as we stay here," Tessa reasoned, relief washing over her face as she hugged Anna closer. The constant state of vigilance was taking its toll on both of them, despite their adaptation to their new reality. "Unfortunately, the situation is more complicated," Mr. Lupo countered, activating a holographic display in the center of the secure room. "The council has deployed a secondary team to your former apartment building with a disturbing contingency plan." The display showed thermal imaging of operatives placing devices throughout the structure where they had once lived. Anna recognized the pattern immediately. "Those are incendiary charges," she whispered, her extraordinary mind calculating blast radius and structural failure points. "Correct," Paolo confirmed grimly. "They're prepared to eliminate your former neighbors to create leverage, threatening civilian casualties, unless you surrender Anna to their custody. Standard council tactics when direct approaches fail." Tessa's face drained of color as the implications became clear. Innocent families who had lived alongside them, children Anna had played with in the building's small courtyard, elderly neighbors who had occasionally watched her daughter while Tessa worked late shifts. "We need to neutralize their leverage immediately, Mr. Lupo declared, already activating a secure communication channel to a specialized team. "Paolo will coordinate an extraction of all civilians from the building, while our counterintelligence unit deals with the devices." Anna watched the tactical planning with the unnerving calm that had become characteristic of her response to danger. "The third device from the left is different from the others," she observed, pointing to barely perceptible differences in the thermal signature. "It's a trigger mechanism, not an explosive." Both men froze, immediately adjusting their approach based on her observation. "She's right," Paolo confirmed after enhancing the imaging. "Standard council protocol, a master detonator disguised as part of the network. Remove that first, or the entire system activates." The evacuation proceeded under the guise of a gas leak. Municipal workers actually Mr. Lupo's operatives guiding residents to safety, while specialized technicians neutralized the threat with remarkably little disruption. By nightfall, the council's leverage had been eliminated, without them realizing their plan had been discovered. "They'll make their final attempt at the summit regardless," Mr. Lupo predicted, reviewing security assessments with his team, "which gives us an opportunity to end this situation permanently if we control the circumstances of the confrontation." The plan that emerged was audacious. Rather than continuing their defensive posture, they would attend the governor's summit as originally invited, but with extensive preparations and counterintelligence measures in place. They would spring the trap intentionally, but on their terms. "You want to use my daughter as bait?" Tessa demanded incredulously when she understood the strategy. "After everything we've done to keep her safe, you want to deliberately put her in their crosshairs?" Her protective instincts flared with renewed intensity. "Not as bait," Mr. Lupo corrected firmly. "As the centerpiece of an operation that will remove the council's interest permanently. Anna will be protected by our most elite security detail, with 3 separate extraction routes and a clear demonstration of consequences should anything go wrong." The preparation was meticulous. Every staff member at the summit venue vetted, security systems augmented with proprietary technology, and a comprehensive intelligence operation identifying all council operatives expected to participate in the extraction attempt. The Charleston Convention Center gleamed with polished marble and crystal chandeliers as the state's most influential figures gathered for the annual economic summit. Security was visibly enhanced due to the governor's presence, though none of the regular attendees realized just how extraordinary the measures truly were. Mr. Lupo arrived fashionably late, making a calculated entrance with Tessa and Anna beside him. The renowned restaurateur and her precocious daughter now firmly established as part of his legitimate business circle. Their appearance triggered subtle movements among various staff members positioned throughout the ballroom. Anna wore a custom-designed dress with a seemingly decorative pattern that actually contained advanced protective materials and tracking technology. Her golden sandals, reminiscent of those worn on the yacht months earlier, concealed communication devices linking her directly to Paolo's security team. 7 operatives identified so far, she whispered to Mr. Lupo, her extraordinary perception catching micro-expressions and body language patterns invisible to others. The woman serving champagne, 2 men by the eastern exit, the photographer, and 3 security guards near the governor's position. Mr. Lupo nodded almost imperceptibly, relaying this intelligence through a subvocal communication system to his security team. Their months of working with Anna had taught them to trust her observations implicitly, adjusting their tactical positioning accordingly. The council's plan became apparent as the evening progressed. A staged security incident near the governor would create confusion, during which their extraction team would separate Anna from her protectors using the service corridors. A textbook operation, meticulously planned but fundamentally flawed. They don't realize you can see their entire communication structure, Mr. Lupo murmured to Anna as they accepted refreshments from a legitimate server. Their operational advantage has always been coordinated action through undetectable signals, exactly what you naturally decode. The council's operation commenced precisely at 9:17 p.m., when a fabricated security alert near the governor's entourage created the diversion they required. Uniformed men moved with practiced urgency, their apparent professionalism masking their true affiliation as they established a controlled chaos pattern. Anna felt a hand grasp her arm with firm but carefully measured force, not enough to bruise or alarm bystanders, but sufficient to ensure compliance. "Come with me, little one," a woman in event staff attire instructed with artificial warmth. "We need to move all children to a secure location immediately." Instead of resisting, Anna followed the protocol she had rehearsed extensively with Paolo, appearing compliant while activating her tracking devices with a precise pattern of pressure on her specially designed bracelet. The extraction team believed they were succeeding, unaware they were being led into a trap. The service corridor branched in 3 directions, with the council operatives selecting the central passage that would lead to their waiting vehicle in the staff parking area. Anna noted with calm detachment that they were following exactly the route Mr. Lupo's team had predicted as most probable. "You're very brave," the false event coordinator told Anna with professional admiration as they approached a service exit. "Most children would be frightened by all this commotion, but you seem perfectly calm." Her tone sought to establish rapport while maintaining control of the situation. "I'm not afraid of you," Anna replied with simple honesty, making direct eye contact with her captor. "But you should be afraid of what happens next." The statement, delivered in the matter-of-fact voice of a child, visibly unnerved the woman just as the first phase of Mr. Lupo's countermeasure activated. The service exit door they had been approaching locked automatically with an audible click, followed in sequence by every door in the corridor. Emergency lighting replaced the standard fixtures, bathing the enclosed space in a distinctive blue glow that disoriented the council operatives momentarily. "Containment protocol active," announced a calm voice over previously hidden speakers. "Please remain in position for security processing." The clinical terminology masked the reality. Mr. Lupo's team had isolated the extraction team in a controlled environment of their own design. The woman's professional demeanor cracked slightly as she realized their carefully planned operation had been compromised. Her hand moved toward a concealed weapon, stopping only when Anna spoke again with unnerving precision. "The blue light disables the firing mechanism in your Glock 43X. Standard council sidearm, but unfortunately susceptible to specialized electromagnetic interference." Mr. Lupo's security team emerged from concealed positions within the corridor's architectural features, their weapons trained on the now trapped council operatives. Paolo personally approached to escort Anna safely behind their defensive perimeter with practiced efficiency. "The council made a critical error," Mr. Lupo announced as he joined them in the corridor, addressing the captured operatives directly. "They assumed the girl was simply an extraordinary linguistic talent, not understanding that she perceives entire systems of communication, including your operational patterns." The lead council operative maintained her composure, despite the failure of her mission. "This changes nothing in the long term," she stated with professional detachment. "The asset's value to our operations remains constant, regardless of temporary setbacks." Mr. Lupo's expression hardened at the continued reference to Anna as an asset rather than a child. "There will be no further attempts," he informed them with quiet certainty. "As we speak, your oversight committee is receiving comprehensive documentation of every operation conducted in North America over the past decade." The woman's carefully controlled expression faltered as she processed the implication. You wouldn't trigger the Gibraltar Protocol over a failed extraction, she challenged, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. Mutual destruction benefits neither organization. Not the full protocol, Mr. Lupo clarified, with the confidence of someone holding an unbeatable position. Just enough evidence to ensure the Council understands that Anna and her mother are permanently removed from your acquisition list. Consider it a good faith demonstration of consequences. Within hours, communication arrived through established back channels. The Council formally acknowledged the new status quo, recognizing that the potential benefits of acquiring Anna no longer outweighed the demonstrated costs. A non-interference agreement was transmitted with all appropriate authentication markers. The weeks following the summit operation brought significant changes to Tessa and Anna's arrangement with Mr. Lupo's organization. Their status evolved from protected assets to valued associates, with increasing integration into legitimate business operations and strategic planning. Tessa's restaurant became a cornerstone of Mr. Lupo's hospitality portfolio, earning a Michelin star in record time while serving as an ideal public-facing role that justified her connection to influential circles. Her natural talent for culinary innovation complemented her growing comfort with their unusual circumstances. Anna's educational program expanded to include specialized modules from universities and think tanks, all carefully vetted and administered through Mr. Lupo's educational foundation. Her extraordinary mind absorbed complex systems theory, cryptographic principles, and diplomatic protocols with the same effortless perception she applied to everything. The Council has honored the non-interference agreement remarkably well, Paolo reported during their monthly security assessment, 6 months after the summit incident. Surveillance indicates they've reassigned all operatives previously tasked with acquisition to operations in Southeast Asia. Mr. Lupo nodded with satisfaction, though his vigilance remained undiminished. Their compliance was predictable once they realized the catastrophic consequences of continued pursuit. Even the Council balances risk against reward in their operational calculus. Anna, now 8 years old after celebrating a birthday with surprising normalcy given their circumstances, had developed her own security awareness that sometimes surpassed even Paolo's professional assessments. Her gift had evolved from passive perception to active threat analysis. "They're not pursuing us directly anymore," she observed, while working on advanced mathematical equations that would challenge graduate students. "But they've assigned watchers to monitor our activities from permitted distances. The man who sells newspapers near the restaurant changes every third day." Tessa had gradually adjusted to her daughter's extraordinary capabilities, finding a delicate balance between nurturing Anna's gift and preserving what childhood experiences remained possible within their security constraints. Weekend trips to carefully vetted destinations provided moments of normalcy. Their visit to a private beach property owned by Mr. Lupo's organization allowed Anna rare opportunities to simply be a child, building elaborate sand structures that happened to demonstrate advanced architectural principles, but with the uninhibited joy any 8-year-old might exhibit. Mr. Lupo often joined these excursions, his initially professional interest in Anna's development having evolved into genuine affection. The man who commanded a vast network of power and influence found unexpected pleasure in teaching a brilliant child to skip stones across ocean waves. "Have you ever considered what Anna might choose for herself when she's older?" Tessa asked him during one such outing, watching her daughter categorize seashells according to a classification system she had invented. Beyond the security arrangements and specialized education, the question gave Mr. Lupo pause, a rare occurrence for someone accustomed to considering all contingencies. "I've established trusts and legal frameworks ensuring her complete autonomy once she reaches adulthood. Her extraordinary abilities shouldn't determine her life path without her consent." This perspective reinforced Tessa's growing trust in their arrangement. Despite the dangerous world they now inhabited, Mr. Lupo consistently demonstrated concern for Anna's well-being beyond her strategic value, a critical distinction from the Council's approach to assets with special abilities. Anna's social development proceeded alongside her intellectual growth, though with necessary adaptations to their security reality. Carefully vetted children of Mr. Lupo's associates occasionally visited Safe Harbor, providing peer interactions within the protective environment. "She processes information differently than other children," observed one of her specialized tutors after a particularly impressive demonstration of Anna's pattern recognition abilities. "But her emotional intelligence and empathy remain absolutely age-appropriate, perhaps even advanced given her experiences." This balance became increasingly important as Mr. Lupo gradually introduced Anna to controlled aspects of his organization's operations, always with Tessa's explicit approval and strict limitations ensuring appropriate content. Her natural gift for identifying communication patterns proved invaluable in diplomatic negotiations. During one particularly tense negotiation with European business partners, Anna quietly identified inconsistencies in their stated positions by observing micro-expressions and linguistic patterns. Her observations, discreetly relayed to Mr. Lupo, prevented a significant strategic miscalculation. "Your daughter just saved us from a $30 million error," he informed Tessa afterward, genuine appreciation evident in his tone. "She identified deceptive indicators I would have missed entirely despite decades of experience reading people." Tessa felt the familiar mixture of pride and concern that had become her constant companion. "I'm glad she could help, but I worry about exposing her to these high-stakes situations. She's still a child despite her extraordinary abilities." "An entirely valid concern," Mr. Lupo acknowledged with characteristic directness. "We'll establish clearer boundaries regarding her involvement in operational matters until she's older. Her well-being takes precedence over any strategic advantage her perceptions might provide." This willingness to prioritize Anna's needs over organizational benefits further distinguished Mr. Lupo from the council in Tessa's estimation. Though his world remained morally complex, his treatment of Anna consistently demonstrated respect for her humanity beyond her capabilities. As Anna's 8th birthday faded into memory, and her 9th approached on the horizon, their extraordinary life acquired a rhythm that almost resembled normalcy, albeit a normalcy that included sophisticated security protocols and interaction with some of the world's most powerful figures. The calm routine they had established shattered on a Tuesday morning when Paolo burst into Tessa's office at the restaurant, his normally composed demeanor visibly shaken. "We need to move immediately," he announced without preamble. "Breach in primary security protocols. Safe harbor has been compromised." Within minutes, Tessa and Anna were secured in an armored vehicle moving swiftly toward an undisclosed location, leaving the confused restaurant staff behind with a hastily fabricated story about a family emergency. The practiced efficiency of the extraction revealed how thoroughly they had prepared for this contingency. "What happened?" Tessa demanded once they were safely in transit, Anna silent beside her with the focused calm she displayed during security situations. "I thought the council agreed to non-interference months ago. Have they violated the agreement?" Paolo shook his head grimly, checking secure communications while their driver navigated a complex route designed to identify potential surveillance. "Not the council. This is something else entirely. A new player has entered the equation with significant resources and detailed intelligence about our operations." Anna studied the passing scenery with heightened awareness, her extraordinary perceptions cataloging subtle details others would miss entirely. "We're being followed by 2 vehicles," she announced with certainty that required no verification. "Dark blue sedan 3 cars back, silver SUV in the parallel lane matching our exact speed." Their driver immediately executed a series of pre-planned evasive maneuvers, confirming Anna's assessment as both identified vehicles attempted to maintain their pursuit pattern. Paolo activated additional security measures from a specialized tablet, coordinating response teams through encrypted channels. "Extraction Team Bravo engaging pursuit vehicles," he reported after receiving confirmation through his earpiece. "Primary route now compromised. Initiating contingency pathway Delta." The vehicle abruptly turned down a service road that appeared barely wide enough for their passage. Tessa held Anna's hand tightly as their vehicle accelerated through increasingly narrow passages, eventually emerging onto a private airstrip, where a sleek jet stood waiting with engines already running. The practiced precision of their security team transformed potential panic into controlled urgency. "Mr. Lupo is already aboard," Paolo informed them, as they hurried across the tarmac, security personnel forming a protective perimeter around their approach. Full briefing once airborne, wheels up in 90 seconds. The timeline left no room for questions or hesitation. The aircraft interior revealed a mobile command center rather than typical luxury accommodations. Communications equipment, security monitors, and tactical planning stations occupied space where comfortable seating might otherwise be found. Mr. Lupo awaited them at a central workstation, his expression grave. "I apologize for the abrupt extraction," he began, once they were airborne and secure. "But we've encountered a security situation requiring immediate response. Someone has acquired detailed knowledge of our operations, including Safe Harbor's defensive capabilities and Anna's special abilities." The implications sent a chill through Tessa. After months of growing comfort and relative normalcy, they were thrust back into acute danger without warning. How is that possible? Your security protocols are extraordinary, and the number of people with complete knowledge is extremely limited. That's precisely what concerns us, Paolo interjected, displaying surveillance footage on the main screen. Initial assessment suggests the information could only have come from someone within our inner security circle. We're dealing with a sophisticated insider threat. Anna studied the tactical displays with the same focused attention she applied to mathematical equations or language patterns. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice steady despite the obvious danger. "This flight path doesn't match any of our pre-established emergency destinations." "Correct observation," Mr. Lupo confirmed, impressed as always by her perceptiveness. "We're implementing Ultra Protocol Omega, a contingency known only to myself and Paolo, established specifically for scenarios involving potential internal compromise." The aircraft banked sharply eastward, flying low over the Atlantic coastline before adjusting to a southeastern heading. Tactical displays showed pursuit aircraft attempting to track their movement until sophisticated countermeasures obscured their signature from conventional tracking systems. "Our destination is a privately owned island in international waters," Mr. Lupo explained, displaying satellite imagery of a small landmass with minimal development visible. "The property exists through 17 layers of corporate separation from any known associates of our organization." Tessa processed this information with the strategic mindset she had developed over months of security briefings. "If someone within your organization betrayed operational details, won't they also know about emergency protocols and contingency locations?" "Ordinarily, yes," Paolo acknowledged, "which is why Ultra Protocol Omega exists outside standard contingency planning. This location was established through channels completely separate from our normal security infrastructure, funded through accounts unconnected to our primary operations." Anna suddenly straightened in her seat, her attention focused on a particular tactical display showing pursuit patterns. "The aircraft following us is using a predictive algorithm to anticipate our course corrections," she observed with absolute certainty. "The pattern matches Mr. Lupo's preferred evasive sequence." Paolo immediately verified her assessment, tactical displays confirming that pursuit aircraft were indeed anticipating their maneuvers with uncanny accuracy. "She's right. They're not following our emissions or radar signature. They're predicting our tactical decisions based on historical patterns." "Which confirms our worst-case scenario," Mr. Lupo concluded grimly, already implementing additional countermeasures. "Only someone with intimate knowledge of my operational tendencies could develop such a predictive model. The compromise extends to the highest levels of our organization. Their aircraft executed a series of completely unorthodox maneuvers that defied standard tactical doctrine, effectively breaking the pursuit aircraft's predictive tracking. The pilot, clearly briefed on Ultra Protocol Omega's unconventional requirements, demonstrated extraordinary skill navigating the unplanned course adjustments. Pursuit aircraft no longer on tracking systems," Paolo confirmed after several tense minutes. "Either they've abandoned the chase or lost our signature completely. Estimated arrival at Omega location in 47 minutes assuming current heading and speed." The island revealed itself on the horizon, a small, densely vegetated landmass with minimal visible infrastructure, nestled within the Caribbean waters. Unlike Mr. Lupo's other properties, this location prioritized obscurity over luxury, its existence protected through careful legal constructs and strategic insignificance. "Welcome to Nova Vita," Mr. Lupo announced as their aircraft approached a concealed landing strip, barely distinguishable from the surrounding landscape. Officially uninhabited, according to all international records, satellite surveillance, and navigation charts. The landing proceeded with expert precision despite challenging crosswinds and the strip's limited dimensions. Ground personnel emerged from camouflaged positions only after specific authentication protocols were completed, their movements disciplined and efficient despite the remote posting. Their temporary residence proved surprisingly comfortable despite its tactical purpose, a low-profile structure built into the natural contours of the island's eastern ridge, offering defensive positioning with 270-degree visibility of surrounding waters, while remaining nearly invisible to passing aircraft or vessels. "The facility is entirely self-sufficient," Paolo explained as they toured the essential areas. "Geothermal power, water purification systems, hydroponic gardens, and enough supplies to sustain us indefinitely if necessary. Communications are limited to secure quantum-encrypted channels only." Anna explored their new environment with characteristic thoroughness, her extraordinary perception identifying defensive features disguised within seemingly natural elements of the landscape. "The rock formations on the northern approach are artificial," she observed, Perfect positioning for surveillance equipment. Very observant, Mr. Lupo confirmed, increasingly unsurprised by her insights. The entire island incorporates defensive architecture within natural features, a security principle dating back centuries, but executed with modern technology. Even knowing what to look for, most experts would miss the integrations. Tessa watched her daughter acclimate to yet another disruption with remarkable resilience, finding herself simultaneously proud of Anna's adaptability and grieved by the necessity for it. Their life had become an endless series of security protocols and contingency plans, normalcy an increasingly distant memory. "How long will we need to stay here?" she asked during a private moment with Mr. Lupo, watching Anna explore a tidal pool under the watchful eye of security personnel. "And what happens when whoever compromised your organization eventually finds this location too?" Mr. Lupo's expression remained carefully neutral, though Tessa had learned to recognize the subtle indicators of his concern. "Will remain until we identify and neutralize the source of the compromise. As for discovery, Nova Vita incorporates lessons learned from every previous security failure we've experienced." That evening, while Anna slept in their secure quarters, the adults gathered in the command center to assess their situation more candidly than they had dared while she was present. Tactical displays showed security sweeps occurring across Mr. Lupo's global network, seeking the origin of the betrayal. "Initial assessment indicates the breach originated approximately 3 weeks ago," Paolo reported, displaying timeline analytics across multiple screens. "Surveillance protocols identified unusual access patterns in our tertiary security archives, but the intrusion was sophisticated enough to evade immediate detection." Mr. Lupo studied the data with the focused intensity that had built his organization, seeking patterns that might reveal the perpetrator. "The timing coincides with negotiations regarding our European shipping operations. Several key partners received unprecedented access to peripheral systems during those discussions. Could it be the Council testing the boundaries of our agreement?" Tessa suggested, her strategic thinking having evolved considerably during their months together. "Perhaps not a direct violation, but rather an assessment of vulnerabilities for potential future exploitation." "Possible, but unlikely," Paolo countered, displaying intercept data on auxiliary screens. "The Council's operational signature is distinct. This intrusion methodology suggests different origin. The technical sophistication indicates state-level resources rather than private organization capabilities." This revelation shifted the atmosphere in the command center significantly. State actors represented an entirely different category of threat, with resources and reach exceeding even Mr. Lupo's considerable capabilities. Their situation had escalated beyond even the worst-case scenarios they had previously contemplated. "If we're facing government resources, our conventional countermeasures may prove insufficient," Mr. Lupo acknowledged, the rare admission of vulnerability demonstrating the gravity of their situation. "We need to identify which specific interests are targeting Anna and why the sudden escalation after months of relative stability." The Charleston waterfront sparkled with holiday lights reflecting across the harbor as Tessa applied finishing touches to a special anniversary dinner in her restaurant's private dining room. Exactly 18 months had passed since the fateful night when Anna's extraordinary perception had prevented an assassination on Volkov's yacht. Anna, now approaching her 10th birthday, helped arrange place settings with meticulous attention to detail, her slender fingers positioning silverware with mathematical precision while humming a complex melody she had composed that morning. Her navy blue dress with gold accents echoed the outfit from that first night, though now chosen deliberately rather than by circumstance. "Are you nervous about seeing everyone together?" Tessa asked, noticing her daughter's focused concentration on the table arrangements. "It's been 3 months since our return from Nova Vita, but this is the first formal gathering of Mr. Lupo's complete inner circle." "Not nervous," Anna replied thoughtfully, adjusting a crystal water glass to perfect alignment. "Just processing all the new security patterns since the protocols changed. The restaurant has 17 more surveillance points than before, and the staff rotation schedule follows a new algorithm. The security restructuring had been comprehensive following their return from 6 months of isolation on Nova Vita. The source of the compromise had eventually been identified, a specialized cyber intrusion originating from a foreign intelligence service seeking Anna's capabilities for code-breaking operations. Mr. Lupo had leveraged extensive diplomatic connections to neutralize the threat through channels entirely separate from his organization's usual operations. The resolution involved complex arrangements with multiple intelligence agencies, establishing Anna as fundamentally untouchable without triggering international incidents. Their return to Charleston had been carefully orchestrated, with enhanced security protocols and legal protections that extended beyond Mr. Lupo's personal resources to include formal agreements with legitimate authorities. Anna's extraordinary abilities were now officially classified information, protected under national security provisions. Tessa's restaurant had reopened to critical acclaim, its temporary closure explained through elaborate cover stories involving renovation and menu development. Her position within Mr. Lupo's organization had evolved from protected asset to essential partner, her culinary empire expanding to 3 locations across the eastern seaboard. Anna's education continued under specialized guidance, now supplemented by carefully screened instructors from prestigious institutions who signed extensive non-disclosure agreements before working with her. Her gift had continued developing in unexpected directions, particularly in mathematical systems and musical structures that somehow connected to her linguistic abilities. The private dining room door opened precisely at 7 o'clock, as Mr. Lupo arrived with Paolo and key members of their security team, the first time this core group had gathered in one location since the Nova Vita incident. Their expressions carried the measured alertness of people who had navigated extraordinary danger together. "A momentous occasion deserves a suitable celebration," Mr. Lupo announced, presenting Tessa with legal documents bearing official government seals. "As of this morning, the final protocols have been implemented. Anna is now officially under multinational protection status through classified executive orders. The implications were profound. Beyond even Mr. Lupo's considerable resources, Anna now had protection from the highest levels of government authority. Her status as a unique strategic asset had been formally recognized without exploiting her abilities, establishing unprecedented security without sacrificing her personal development. We've created something entirely new," Paolo explained, genuine pride evident in his typically reserved demeanor. "A protection framework that preserves autonomy while ensuring security. A model that could revolutionize how exceptional individuals are safeguarded without institutional exploitation." Tessa felt tears threatening as she reviewed the documentation. After 18 months of constant vigilance and adaptation, they had achieved something resembling genuine security. Not perfect freedom, certainly, but protection that didn't require perpetual flight or isolation from the world. Anna accepted the developments with her characteristic calm perception, seemingly unsurprised by the culmination of complex diplomatic negotiations. "This means we can stay in Charleston permanently?" she asked, focusing on the practical implications most important to a child, despite her extraordinary mind. "Not just stay, but flourish," Mr. Lupo confirmed, his usually guarded expression softening with genuine affection. "Your mother's restaurants are becoming culinary landmarks. Your education can proceed without disruption, and most importantly, you have the foundation for something approaching normal childhood experiences." The dinner proceeded with surprising warmth, despite the formidable individuals gathered around the table. These powerful figures who navigated shadowy worlds of international influence had somehow become family to Tessa and Anna. Unconventional, certainly, but bound by experiences and mutual protection that transcended typical relationships. Thank you all for following this extraordinary journey of a tiny girl with a remarkable gift, who changed the course of dangerous events with her perception. If you've enjoyed this story of courage, protection, and finding family in unexpected places, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to support more thrilling tales of ordinary people with extraordinary abilities facing impossible odds. Your engagement helps this channel continue bringing these suspenseful stories straight to your screens.